7:01 here. That means the polls are officially closed here in the state of Missouri. Thank you so much for joining us for our election night live stream coverage. I'm Marissa Hollowed.
And I'm Lucas Geisler. For the next 2 hours, we are going to be going to reporters several times throughout the night. They'll be going over Senate and representative races impacting Congress, impacting Jefferson City. We'll also be talking to ABC 17's Megan Drakis, the only Columbia reporter in Washington, D.C. And between 8 and 8:45, we're going over all the amendments that were on Missouri ballots tonight and talking to two live experts here in studio. A lot of stuff.
We've got a lot of stuff to cover, but we do have 2 hours. So that's the good news. Well, first, we're going to go out to ABC 17's Hannah Falcon. She is live right now from Eric Schmidt's watch party at the Sheraton Westport Chalet in St. Louis. Hannah.
Hi, Marissa. Hi, Lucas. Yeah, polls just closed, and I checked, and no precincts are reporting yet, so we're not really sure how the results are going, but preliminary polls that we've seen do have Schmidt favored over Democrat candidate Trudy Busch Valentine, and people are starting to come in from his party. I know you can't quite see it because they're off on the sides of the room where you can't see behind me, but there are supporters gathering. They've got music, they've got food. People here are ready to celebrate, so we'll see if they have something to celebrate in a few hours when we do get those results coming in. I've been speaking with his supporters too. One supporter I spoke with said that he supports just the regular people, and that's why she likes him. There's a lot of issues that voters care about every year. This year, one of the big ones is the economy and inflation. They tell me that this is something that impacts everyone. It impacts parents and children and people in school or people with jobs. Just anyone is impacted by inflation this year. They said that they believe that Schmidt will go to Washington and fight to keep down government spending and lower inflation. Thank you.
I think there's just basic things that they're concerned about. Food and fuel, gas and groceries, the rising cost of everything, inflation.
We need to be energy dominant again. We need to be a net exporter of energy. We have all the energy we'll ever need under our feet. We need to be sure that we're utilizing that on behalf of the American people. We need to control the reckless spending. I think that's the other piece of inflation.
And that sound we had from Schmidt was from yesterday when he was doing a couple of last-minute campaign stops. He was touring all across the state yesterday, connecting with voters. He was connecting with the Boone County Democrats in Columbia and just getting that last-minute FaceTime with his supporter base, the Republican base in Missouri. The Republican, like I said earlier, preliminary polls showed him favored to win over the Democrat candidate, but we'll see in a couple of hours as those results roll in. Maybe later in this live stream, we'll check in again with you, Lucas and Marissa, and see how the results start coming in. But for now, reporting live in St. Louis, I'm Hannah Falcon, ABC 17 News.
There's certainly not much national attention on this race because of how a lot of people were projecting this to go in favor of the Republican Party for Senate. Still, a valuable seat for both parties looking for power in the Senate. And ABC 17 chief photographer Chris Bryant is live from Trudy Busch Valentine's watch party, that Democratic candidate that's there at the Sheet Metal Local 36 Union Hall in St. Louis. Hi, Chris.
Yeah, Lucas, the doors here just opened just a couple of minutes ago, so it's still a little slow. People are slowly starting to file in. Maybe a couple of people have made their way in. We expect Trudy Busch Valentine to arrive sometime after 7 o'clock here, probably 7:30, 7:45 is what the current time is, last I heard. So that'll kind of be happening a little bit later. But, she was at her polling location this morning. It voted around 6:30 this morning with her family here in St. Louis. And then afterwards, she spent the day kind of talking to voters, going to the polling locations all over the St. Louis area. And Trudy Busch Valentine's been trailing Attorney General Eric Schmidt here, the Missouri Attorney General, for the last few weeks of the campaign, this time by about as much as 11 points. And a couple weeks ago, we caught up with Trudy Busch Valentine in Columbia. She told me that it's important for those in Washington to work together now more than ever.
We have to work together. I think people are tired of the fighting that's going on in politics and in Washington. I think we're so divided as a nation. We have to come back together. We have to get united somehow. And I think I'm the person that can really help do this.
Now, once again, she is trailing Attorney General Eric Schmitt in the polling. But those votes are going to start coming in fairly quickly, Lucas, and hopefully we'll have an idea of how this vote's turning out here shortly. But for now, at the Trudy Bush Valentine campaign, Chris Bryant, ABC 17 News.
All right, Chris, thank you for that update. And now we're also following the 3rd Congressional District seat. ABC 17's Marina Diaz is live from Blaine Luetkemeier's watch party at the Courtyard Marriott in Jefferson City. Marina, the watch party just now getting started. How's the turnout at this point?
Marissa, there's quite a few people coming out here. Some former representatives as well as some current ones are starting to arrive, and there's definitely quite the stark difference between what I showed you guys about an hour ago to now. People are really starting to come in here.
All right, Marina, Luetkemeyer is the incumbent. Tell us a little bit about just how long he's actually held this office.
Yeah, Marissa, so Blaine Luetkemeyer has held his current position for 9 years now as the House of Representatives' 3rd Congressional District. He also previously has had quite the lengthy run within the Missouri's government. He's held offices for the Tourism Commission of Missouri and the Missouri House of Representatives, and has been working in Missouri's government all the way since 2005.
All right, Marina, we know that you've been there talking to people. What are Republicans hoping to accomplish tonight with Luetkemeier's race?
Marissa, Republicans along with Luetkemeyer are hoping to take back the congressional district. The Democrats currently hold power over the House of Representatives, but tonight's election they are hoping to take back the majority power.
All right, Marina, we appreciate all those updates. We're going to be checking in with you live throughout the night, of course, as those election results continue to come in.
Yeah, Blaine Luetkemeier's held on to that seat, as Marina pointed out, for a really long time now. We'll see if it ends up flipping to a Democrat. I know a lot of the polling, again, favors Luetkemeyer in that one. But, of course, that's the big question with the House of Representatives tonight. Will the Republicans take back control of that House? It's so narrow right now, only about the 7 seats separates the balance of power in the House of Representatives. And Blaine Luetkemeyer, if Republicans take over the majority, could be a powerful member of the House. He's been a longtime member of their banking committee there, and could hold a pretty high role, a pretty powerful role within the party should Republicans take it back. So
sure.
Interesting to hear from Blaine there.
And the congressional districts being redrawn, so kind of a new impact on District 3, also District 4.
Yeah, his district, now District 3, southern half of Boone County, in fact, splitting Columbia right in half down Broadway between that and the 4th district now, which takes the northern half. Blaine, as Representative Luetkemeyer, has represented Boone County before when he first ran. When it was the 9th congressional district there, it was Boone County up to like the northern part of the state. Now, Boone County back within his district, but of course, Cole County long been a part of that 3rd congressional district as we see it now.
Yeah, so obviously a lot of mixed thoughts on the redistricting and how it will impact this. Of course, only time will tell tonight, and we'll see how that all shakes out. Of course, our ABC 17 crews are monitoring all of this for you. At ABC 17 News, we like to be organized. We like to try to make things easy for you. Try being the key word, I guess. All right, well, you can see we have reporters all across the state, also in Washington, D.C. tonight, in St. Louis, of course, covering the Senate race. We just heard from Chris Bryant. We also heard from our other reporters, Hannah Falcon, who's covering Eric Schmitt's campaign for us in the St. Louis area tonight. Of course, a number of amendments, too, that we're going to be getting into a little bit later here.
Yes, Amendment 3.
That's a big one.
Tops the list, so to speak. Legalizing marijuana essentially is what we're talking about here for the state
Recreational
of Missouri.
marijuana.
Recreational marijuana. Yeah, right now you can buy it medicinally if you have a card. This would allow people 21 and older to buy marijuana, to grow marijuana in certain quantities on their own as well. A big ticket item especially. You're looking at, Marissa, 5 states are actually deciding a similar issue here. Arkansas, Maryland, both North and South Dakota. What's interesting, I think, about those 5 states, 4 of them are states that voted for the Republican president in 2020, that voted for Donald Trump. This has long been seen as an issue that usually people who vote for Democratic candidates and Democrats in government care about, used to be the ones that it seemed like cared about this more. But you've seen a big groundswell of movement, especially from more conservative people, even more right-leaning people, towards marijuana legalization to end the sort of prohibition on marijuana. So you're looking at several Republican-led states just tackling the issue of marijuana legalization. Missouri being one of them.
Yeah.
Going to be an interesting to see how the outcome of this goes.
Sure, and there's no opposition to Amendment 3 watch party tonight. However, there is a big watch party going on in St. Louis. I believe it's at the Brew House inside of Ballpark Village. People waiting to see what happens with Amendment 3. So that's another thing we'll be covering. But right now, let's get to ABC 17. Chanel Porter, she is live from our election board in the newsroom tonight. This is a new feature. And again, when I referenced us wanting to be organized and make things easy for you, Chanel is here to help us all with that. Hey, Chanel.
Hi, Marissa. I'm here with Matt. We are looking at the election board. Matt, you've got a lot in the works here on our homepage.
Yeah. We have, so if you're, the big races here in Missouri that you're interested in, you'll see those across the top. You can actually scroll through those by hitting those arrows, of course. You can do that on your computer at home, and it should work great. Look at that. There's us streaming live. We also have our live stream on our homepage. We also have this neat live chat that people can take part in. This chat actually includes people all over the country in all of NPG's markets. So you can talk with people about, of course, the congressional balance of power, or just Missouri issues here if you want. Of course, some big things on the ballot, such as U.S. Senate and Amendment 3, which would legalize recreational marijuana. So a few things there.
We have a good evening from Idaho in there.
Yes, right. We have one of our stations is in Idaho, so they're definitely in here. We also have stations out in California. We also have one here in Missouri. So you might get the chance, if you want to take part in the chat, to actually talk with people all over the place. And you can click here to get the full chat too. This is just a little snippet of it to kind of show you what's going on. The other things that we have, of course, is our election updates blog. This is going to be updated throughout the night. Right now, our latest update is with the voter turnout. That was, as of, if I remember correctly, 6 p.m., an hour before the polls closed. Here is us as well. That's our election night live. You also have links here to our election results for state and local races, national balance of power, interactive statewide vote, interactive state, House, and Senate votes. And of course, if you click on these, let's just take, for example, full election results for state and national, or state and local, I should say. So here is kind of our one-stop shop for all of your Missouri and local races tonight. One of the cool things you can do, you have this little drop-down menu where you can go to a particular race. Say you want to, because there are a lot of races, of course, including all these retained judge questions. But say you're interested in, let's just take State Senate District 10, for example. It will jump you down here, and there it is, Travis Fitzwater's race. So then you can easily go back to the top. We also have this stuff accessible from our, what we call our hamburger menu. You might call it something else, but these 3 little lines up here, this is your key to navigating our website. So there's our hamburger menu. The full results that you see are right there. Did not mean to click on that. This thing is sensitive, so. Statewide races and issues. Let's just take a look at that. If you want to kind of walk us through what we have here, Chanel.
Yeah, so this is kind of as results come in, as votes come in, as they're counted, these numbers will start to go up. As you can see, we're already starting to get some. A few hours ago when we were looking at this, we didn't have any bars over here. So it's nice that those are starting to come in. On the balance of power earlier, I saw numbers that were kind of all over the place, that's for sure.
Here, let's take a look at, we got this nice 538 graphic right now that also shows chances to win in the House. So if you've been paying attention to the coverage leading up to this election, a lot of the analysts are saying now that Republicans are likely to take back the House. And that Democrats might be able to extend their lead in the Senate. But
Matt, I think Marissa and Lucas have some news to us, so we'll get back to this when you guys come back to us. But for you guys, back in the studio.
See you soon.
Could call him our web extraordinaire. He's the one that puts all of this stuff together for you on ABC17news.com. We're going to be checking back in with them throughout the evening tonight for more updates and some breakdowns on all of that information. But right now, let's go back to ABC 17's Chris Bryant, who is in St. Louis tonight. He is at U.S. Senate candidate Trudy Busch Valentine's watch party tonight. Chris, people have been starting to kind of make their way in there tonight. What can you tell us about what's going on right now?
The objective to hold them for 10 years, not to win them, and then.
First of all, I wish I had a dance partner. The band just fired up, and we got some good tunes going along here. There's been some people slowly starting to come in. Once these doors open at 7 o'clock and those polls close, we're actually starting to see those early returns out of Jackson County, Missouri. With they currently got Trudy Busch Valentine leading, but those numbers will change throughout the night without a doubt. They'll go up, down for both sides. So it's going to be a long night here in Trudy Busch Valentine's campaign headquarters. And I spoke with her earlier a couple weeks ago, and she said that one of the things she wants to work on is being an advocate for families in Missouri, making sure that she's there listening, fighting for them in Washington, D.C. That would be the difference, one of them, between her and Eric Schmitt as the senator. Right now she was trailing in the polls. She's been down by about 11 points as the most recent numbers as they've come across. But, right now it's starting to pick up a little bit. Like I said, more and more people are coming in. We got about 30 people off over here to my right and another, 10 or 15 to my left. So it's going to slowly start filling in here, and we expect to see Trudy Busch Valentine sometime around, right now 7:30, 7:45, maybe a little bit closer to 8. And she'll take the stage at some point behind me and speak to those supporters that have gathered here. But Marissa, right now, we'll kick it back to you guys and let you guys, take it home for us for this little bit here. But right now, those early numbers are coming in, and we got some music going. So I'm going to go find somebody to dance with.
We'd all like to see a couple moves. All right, Chris, thank you for that. We appreciate it. Right now, we're going to go back to the ABC 17 newsroom. We're going to be joined by Chanel Porter and Matt Sanders, who are breaking down some of those big races for us tonight. Hey, guys.
Yeah, welcome back to the election. Just pick up where we left off here.
Yeah, so what we're looking at here is projections from 538. As we were saying last time, a lot of analysts think that Republicans are going to take back control of the House, while Democrats may be able to extend their majority in the Senate. So right now, looking at this, it looks like Republicans have an 84 in 100 chance to take the House of Representatives. That's not good news for Democrats. They only have 16 in 100 chance. And of course, as you know, if you have one house and not the other, that makes things a little bit more difficult to get legislation passed.
Well, Matt, I mentioned to you when I first got here that these numbers were drastically different, and it was a lot closer in there.
Yeah, these keep changing, and part of the reason that you're seeing that, one is exit polling. As more data gets in, more voters go, and there's more exit polling, the projections change. But also, we are starting to see polls closing on the East Coast, and those numbers starting to come in already. So remember, the East Coast is an hour ahead of us. Generally, polls close at 7, so they would have closed at 6 here, so they've been closed for about an hour. Polls here have closed at 7, and we're even starting to get some votes in, as Chanel had pointed out earlier. Where were we here? Senate, yeah. In the Senate race, we already have some votes coming in. It's not very many, and these are probably absentee votes from a certain few counties. We don't really know which ones yet, but you're starting to get a few votes in. So what else you can find on our website if you're looking for information about the vote tonight? Missouri House and Senate. Let's check that out. So we have, of course, Senate races in even-numbered districts here in Missouri are on the ballot this year, and all House races are on the ballot. Every 2 years they're on the ballot. So we have put together this nice look at Missouri House and Senate races. We have a few here in our local area that are contested races where either party could win. Chanel, you want to take them through it and show what we got here?
Yeah, so just kind of looking, you can see.
We started out with Senate race here.
Yeah, we're starting with Trudy and Eric. I was kind of looking at the map earlier, and it was like Eric was 99-1 at that point. But as you can see with these early votes, Trudy has a longer bar here, which we all know what that means. So scrolling down a little bit, see what we got.
There we go. So these are Missouri race calls that a few of these have been called already because they're not contested, of course. Right. But, you know, you can kind of scroll within this to see more, if you want, of each race.
A lot of incumbents in there.
Yes, there are a whole lot of incumbents that nobody is trying to beat. But then here we have where we're featuring our local races of import. So right here, you'll see you have the 44th district here in Boone County, Cherie Tolson Reich, trying to keep her seat against Dave Rathel. No local votes are in yet, so sorry about that, but no Boone County votes are in. Then you have John Martin taking on Adrian Plank. Here you have the 49th district, where Jim Schulte and Jessica, I will not try to pronounce her last name because I am not aware of how it's pronounced. So, and then we have Douglas Mann and James Musgraves in the 50th district. This is an important Boone County district. One that, remember, all these districts changed their shape after the last census. So this is the first election in which you're having these new district boundaries. The 50th district changed quite a bit, and it now takes in large portions of the conservative areas of Boone County. It did as well before, but now takes in some of the less conservative areas too, sort of making that a district that's more in play for Democrats.
Matt, I think one of the biggest sources of just information that even helped me is on our tab with all of our reporter stories from earlier this week.
Yes. So if you look at our Your Voice, Your Vote page, that's what Chanel is talking about, and we have some preview stories that kind of really let you know what's at stake in the race. In the different races, I should say. So you can look at what's on the ballot locally here in our counties. We do have a few county races, a few tax issues on the ballot that will be driving some votes. For example, here in Boone County, we have the presiding commissioner. Right. You have Republican Kip Kendrick Democrat Kip Kendrick and Republican Connie Leipard, who are running for that. You have a presiding commissioner on the ballot in Cole County as well. Here in Boone County, you also have auditor. That's a big race here because that is, you're replacing an incumbent who spent about 30 years in office, who is now retiring. Right. So that's a race to watch too. But anyway, it also talks about how Missouri factors into the national balance of power that we've been talking about all night. It's really a big story. The redrawn House and Senate districts and how those might affect things. Here's our live blog. Here's about the statewide issues on the ballot. Speaking of, let's show people where they can find that too. Here we go. So under the Your Voice, Your Vote on our, what I called the hamburger menu, you got a statewide races and issues. Because of course, there is a particular amendment that is of great interest to everybody. By the way, you'll see that our little not called and called is starting to move a little bit. Hold on, there we go. So you can see U.S. House races in Missouri here. But also, once you scroll down, here we go, ballot measures. Okay, so these are what a lot of people are watching. This is what drove a lot of people to the polls. Chanel, you want to tell a little bit about what we have here?
Yeah, you can see more on your side than I can.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. So we have investment of state funds. We had a preview story about this that you can also find on our website. And of course, Amendment 3, that's the big one, is the ballot issue to legalize recreational marijuana. That would also expunge nonviolent drug convictions from many people's criminal records. What you're seeing over here by Chanel is a map that once the vote comes, that'll start filling in. So you'll be able to see which parts of the state voted which way for this amendment.
Will it pop up, question for that I don't even know, will it pop up a color for each? Or what?
There should, yeah,
Okay.
because you'll have one color will be designated as the no and one as the yes.
Got it.
And then you should be able to even click on each county and you can find out how the county went.
Okay.
Because, you know, everybody's probably going to be curious if you voted on this question. Well, how did my family, friends, and neighbors vote on this?
Right.
Well, you can find out that way. Of course, the other amendments are also here for you. And the Constitutional Convention ballot issue. That's a big one, of course. All right, let's just go back home and see where we are at right now.
Getting a little ways in there.
Yeah, we're starting to get some. If you want to hit that over there. All right, so none of our
Still not a
local
lot
races, nothing on the legalized marijuana ballot yet, but just keep looking later and you should be able to find those. And of course, there's the link for full results that you can get really easily there. Oh, sorry about that, never mind. There's the link for full results that you should be able to get easily from our homepage, but if that is not working, you got it right here too. So that's always available. And that should be a very popular spot on our website tonight. We expect to start getting some votes in here really soon. Usually it's about 7:30 or so when we start to see the first votes in from our local counties. So once we do, you're going to start seeing those votes tabulate into these. You know, you're already again seeing U.S. Senate getting some votes in. Very few compared to when you think about 6 million people in Missouri, 15,000 votes, not very much, long way to go. That's another thing that is probably good to let people know about as well. This may take more time than you're used to.
Okay.
Every election's kind of different in the amount of time it takes to tally those votes. But in this one in particular, we've heard from county clerks that tonight might be a slower night in general because we have a new law this year. That law requires voters to present some form of valid photo ID, usually a driver's license, military ID, something like that. Well, part of what that means is also that people who don't have those valid forms of ID have to cast a special kind of ballot called provisional ballots. Those provisional ballots then have to be verified. Of course, that takes time. They can't be voted until they can't be counted until that happens. So as you can see, that's going to extend the time of the vote. Also, the law in Missouri is that you can't count any votes until the polls close. So all the absentee votes that were in, I believe the county clerk said somewhere around 14,000 were cast before Election Day. None of those can be counted until tonight. So there will be some things that'll make that process take a little bit of time. So just be aware of that.
It's going to be a long night for those vote counters.
It will. It will. It'll be a long night for us, longer night for the vote counters. So, but we'll be here all night. We'll have our election updates going, of course. Always look for the updates here, as well as our full results. Let's just check in right now and see. Let's see how our national balance of power is doing.
Fingers crossed.
Yes. I'm going to go to geographic view here because I like it better. Some people like cartogram better, and cartogram's that one where you got the little squares, but I tend to like geographic better. And we're actually...
Got some East Coast action.
Yeah, oh yeah, there's a lot happening. We're actually updating our website here shortly with some of this info, but what you're looking at right here is the Senate. And it looks like we've got several states where those are already decided. Now, some of those might be states where, there's not really a contested race where, say, you might have a Democrat or a Republican and then some sort of independent candidate. But of course, others are states where you just have such a dominant candidate. Like, click on Florida there and see what that says. Okay, so there we go. Here we are in Florida. You've got 80.5% of the votes counted. That's quite a lot. Remember, they are an hour ahead of us, so they've been counting already. And it looks like Marco Rubio is really easily going to win against Val Demings. that was one that people were watching really closely. People thought Val Demings could really do something here, but it's not looking like it. Let's see.
Matt, they are ready for us back in the studio, so we get a little break.
Great.
Good
All right,
news.
that's good. Well, we'll see you again here in a little bit.
All right, we'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
We appreciate you going to ABC 17 News for your election coverage tonight. We have reporters all across the state and across the country for that matter. ABC 17's Megan Drakis is live for us in Washington, D.C. tonight as polls are closing across the country. Megan, what do you have for us right now?
Good evening, Marissa. Yes, I'm live here in Washington, D.C. We're monitoring all the elections across the country, including here in the state capitol. We're monitoring the U.S. Senate race, the U.S. House of Representatives. In the past few hours, we've actually had a couple polls close, including Missouri. The first poll that closed was actually Puerto Rico at 3 p.m. Missouri time. Puerto Rico has around 3.26 million residents. Just for a little idea, New Hampshire has 1.3 million residents. So that actually has double the amount of residents that are located in New Hampshire. Now, we spoke to the press office at the Capitol yesterday when we got our press passes on Capitol Hill, and they actually told us there is a lot of international interest in this election, which is very interesting. I mean, with the potential flip of the Senate as well as maybe the House of Representatives, it could really determine the U.S.'s position in the world powers. We also have parts of Kentucky that closed at 5 p.m. Missouri time, parts of Indiana. In Florida, so far we have learned Republican Senator Marco Rubio has won re-election, defeating Val Demings. Georgia has also closed their election polls, parts of Indiana, other parts of Kentucky about an hour later also closed their polls. In South Carolina, Republican Tim Scott won re-election in the U.S. Senate, and in Vermont, Democrat Peter Welch has won re-election to U.S. Senate. Now, let's take a little look at ABC17news.com. This is the Your Voice, Your Vote National Balance of Power tabs, where we are keeping track of all the people in the U.S. Senate and how they have secured the seats. Now, currently, the balance of power is Democrats have secured 40 seats and Republicans have 37 seats. Now, just a little while ago, it was Democrats 40, Republicans 34. So that is gaining on the Republican side. And again, Republicans do have to secure 51 seats to take control of that Senate House, to the U.S. Senate rather, and Democrats would only have to secure 50 because of the Vice President Kamala Harris. Now let's take a look at this map below. You can see some of the states that are already called. Oklahoma is red, Arkansas is red, Alabama is red, along with South Carolina, and we've got Illinois on the Democratic side. We've got Vermont, we've got Maryland. So there's a lot of polls that we are monitoring tonight, but we'll continue to monitor them here live from Washington, D.C. We're bringing you all the latest updates on the live stream and continuing with our normal newscasts at 9 and 10 p.m. Reporting live in Washington, D.C., Megan Drakis, ABC 17 News.
Megan, thank you so much. You've been working hard for us in Washington, D.C. We'll be checking in with Megan, like she said, throughout the night tonight. But right now, we are lucky enough to have two experts live here in the studio with us tonight. Fred Perry, thank you so much for joining us, former Boone County Commissioner and Republican, and Karen Sickinator, you are here for the Missouri Democratic State Committee, representing that. Thank you so much for coming out tonight.
Absolutely, glad to be here.
I think we can kind of start off talking about voter turnout. Our last update we got was at 6 o'clock, 47% turnout in Boone County. Of course, voter turnout back in 2018 across the country, more numbers closer to 70%. Of course, this is a midterm, but what's our reaction to this?
So I had a conversation with Brianna a little bit earlier today, and what she was seeing is numbers that are pretty typical of a midterm election versus in 2018, where we had some very unusual things on the ballot, including right to work. We had Claire McCaskill on the ballot. And we also had Donald Trump come and make a visit to Boone County 3 days before the election. So all of those things really kind of played into significantly higher voter turnout in 2018 than what we expect to see for this year.
I don't think that there are probably some folks that feel like it might be a waste of their time to get out. I think that talk of the red wave and things that we're predicting in terms of the amount of victory that some folks would have, the margin of victory that some folks would have, probably kept some people in. I think that was our worry all along, is that people would feel like their vote did not matter late in the process. And so I think some folks came discouraged and just didn't feel the motivation to get out to the polls.
Okay. We'll talk about some of the big issues and races that are driving people to vote this time around. Of course, one of the biggest races here in the state is for U.S. Senate. What's the impact of this, if you want to talk about it?
Well, I think that it's pretty clear that Missouri is a very red state, with the exception of Jackson County, Boone County, and St. Louis. But I think that it was pretty clear along that Eric Schmitt was leading in the polls by a pretty good margin, and I think that that probably was not as interesting of a race as it might have been when Josh Hawley was running against Claire McCaskill. And so. But I think that the constitutional amendments probably were also not that big of a draw this time, other than the marijuana initiative number 3. It just wasn't that sexy or that interesting, and frankly, they were very confusing. And I think a lot of people probably showed up at the polls today and read the ballot language for the first time and said, I had no idea we were voting on this. And so they really, other than marijuana, there really wasn't a very concerted effort to get the message out.
Karen, any thoughts on the U.S. Senate race?
I largely agree with that. I think Trudy Busch Valentine put up one hell of a race. I think she was definitely our best option going through to the general election. And honestly, she's one of the nicest people I've ever met. So that says a lot for her. I know that when she was doing her tours across the state, there was a huge amount of just connecting with her and, people crossing the aisle to vote for her as well. So I think that she is in a position to do the best that we could do at this time in light of what our voter turnout is.
And Fred, you mentioned marijuana. That is a big talker. So many people interested in this one. And of course, that would be legalizing recreational marijuana here in the state of Missouri. Yeah. Let's talk about this.
So I think it's really interesting because I do believe that this amendment is going to pass, but we're also looking at a potential federal decriminalization. So even if it doesn't pass, we could still see some of that happening on the federal level, and it might make a difference on what we're able to do in the legislature here if it does fail.
I think, I tend to be somewhat cynical about some of these races. Follow the money. I think if you follow the money on Amendment 3, it reveals a very different picture of what's really going to happen. We have people in the state of Missouri that have been pro-legalization for a long time who are working very hard against Amendment 3 because of where the money was going and the way that things were being set up. I think the message got out late, but the message that really marijuana needs to be a state statute and not a constitutional amendment. And I think that that's the one issue that maybe they did their research on. And so I disagree. I think Amendment 3 will probably fail tonight, and I hope that it does.
And of course, 5 other states with marijuana on the ballot as well. So it'll be interesting to see what, of course, happens with this. The DOJ showing up in Cole County to monitor the polls. They were outside, not inside. A lot of local election officials not happy about this, not exactly sure why. The DOJ talking about them getting some complaints. What do we think about this?
I'm disappointed by the lack of transparency by the DOJ. I really feel like that when they came to Cole County, when they came to the state of Missouri, they should have been very transparent about why they were there and what the types of complaints were, just the general nature of the complaints. I think it really was an unfair thing to do to the Cole County election officials because they've got a very busy day ahead of them, and the last thing they need is this distraction. So if there is a legitimate complaint, I sort of felt like the people in Cole County needed to know what the nature of those complaints were.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I mean, we have these people showing up from out of nowhere, and for the most part, you know, we've seen our elections being very well protected. We see a lot of integrity from our county clerks, from our Secretary of State, who are upholding, you know, fair results that are coming out. So what kind of complaints are happening? How much of this is perhaps motivated by pure propaganda and not necessarily what's actually true? So I think we should hear a little bit more about that.
Sure. And, you know, if we kind of talk about voting machine security, you know, this has kind of been like a hot button issue, especially after 2020. You know, what kind of things are in place and what kind of issues can we face with things like that, with that being a concern of some voters out there?
I mean, certainly whenever you're dealing with technology, there's always that concern about how safe, how secure is this. But when we put that up against counting ballots by hand, the chance of human error is significantly stronger than the chance of our voting machines being hacked or being compromised. So really, we should put a little bit more faith in our technology, and we have the backup of being able to hand count ballots and go through that process, but as an audit in the background.
Sure.
You know, I think in Boone County, we're pretty fortunate to have the state-of-the-art equipment and machines. You know, the news story tonight about Cole County getting new machines after many, many years. I think that cybersecurity is a very real concern these days. And when you hear news stories like we did yesterday about Russian officials admitting that they were interested in tampering with the elections in the United States, it does cause some concern. And I think, you know, people tend to have very wild imaginations. If there's an awful lot of conspiracy theories that surrounded the 2020 election, and I think if there were a way to convince people, to show them the inside of how this technology works and how it is secure and how it's protected, I think we could really restore confidence in our elections in this country.
Sure. Well, 2 congressional districts being redrawn, of course, District 3 and District 4, splitting Boone County, which is a big difference. You know, with some of those congressional districts being redrawn, how do we think this could impact the midterm this time?
Go ahead. I live on West Broadway, and so I am in the 4th congressional district. My neighbors across the street are in the 3rd congressional district, and so it's really, I think that is really a disappointing situation to have Columbia divided into congressional districts. I think we have very unique needs that I do not think are similar to what's happening in western Missouri or in the lower Boot Hill part of the state. You know, we really Columbia has very unique needs as a home of the state's university and so close to the home of state government. I hate to see us divided that way. It's not in the best interest of the citizens of Boone County.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And really what we were seeing come out of that is a very concentrated effort at gerrymandering Boone County in order to split up what is a Democratic stronghold into 2 separate districts in order to really weaken what the people here want and need. Really, we're not looking at a very similar situation for citizens of Columbia versus all the way down in what was the original 4th congressional district, where it's very heavily farmland, smaller communities, very different needs, and it's really kind of a shame that, you know, we're being taken advantage of like that. So.
And we'll kind of talk about those 2 races, District 3 and District 4. District 3 being Blaine Luetkemeyer versus Bethany Mann. With the outcome of this, what do you think we could see?
So it's a very interesting race. I actually worked very closely with Bethany Mann. We're about the same age. We have very similar backgrounds. So it was very interesting to get to know her on a personal level. And she actually, when she started this, she had a 4-way primary. And she ended up getting something like 62% of the vote in the primary, which is really unprecedented. It really caught the attention of a lot of people of just how good of a candidate this woman is and what she could actually do in reality for this district. She has a really strong background to actually represent the people in the 3rd across the spectrum, and I think that's really valuable, and people should definitely pay attention to her and her campaign.
I think that's one of the things that will ultimately affect turnout this election, is that this has been the year of the newcomer, political newcomer. And I think that, Bethany does not have great name recognition. She's not run before. She's running against a long-time sitting congressman. The same is true in the 4th District with Mark Alford and Jack Truman. Really, neither of those gentlemen have had much of a very political career to speak of. And so, if you like a certain candidate and you're familiar with them and you know them, if you've seen them at a rally, you're more likely to get out and vote for them. So, I think this is going to be a very good year for Republicans in both of those districts. But it's one of those things that, it's unusual to see so many newcomers in one election.
Sure. And we had Mark Alford here in studio, talk to him, longtime news anchor
Right.
out of Kansas City.
Yeah.
He's really the front runner in that race. Also spoke to Jack Truman. I talked to him over Zoom. He's doing his entire campaign digitally, I guess online, and did a lot of self-funding. Let's talk a little bit about this race.
Yeah, it's all about the money. I hate to say that, but it's really when you look at what it takes to get your message out there, especially now that we're divided between 2 television markets here in Columbia with the 2 congressional districts. It's one of those things where it's very, very expensive to run a race. And so if you're running in the 4th District, you got to buy Kansas City media, you got to buy Columbia, Jefferson City media. And I think that's very tough to pull that off. Now, Trudy Bush Valentine was lucky enough to be able to really fund most of her own campaign just because of her net worth. And so she was able to be competitive against Eric Schmidt, but Eric Schmidt came into this race with a very big war chest, which gave him a distinct advantage.
Yeah, I think it was honestly a wise move how Jack decided to run his campaign. This is a very red district now, even more so than it was prior to redistricting. And it really ends up being almost a waste of money for us to spend too much on something that will ultimately be very unwinnable for us. I mean, it takes a huge amount of effort, a huge ground game, knocking all of those doors, trying to convince people to change what they were raised to believe. So what he has done is put his name on the ballot so that there's actually a Democrat to vote for, and we can continue with the message without sinking too much money into it.
Great. All right. Well, I think we are going to wrap up for a little bit here, but you guys are sticking around, and we're happy about that. Lots more to talk about. Our producers, I'm going to ask you guys where we're going to next. All right, we are going to go talk about the Cole County Commission. So, guys, thank you. We'll be right back. Right now, incumbent and Republican Sam Bushman is running against independent Carla Steck. This is for Cole County presiding commissioner. Right now, only 4% of precincts reporting, so small numbers at this point. But it does look like Sam Bushman is in the lead at this point. And right now, we are going to go back to our newsroom with ABC 17's Chanel Porter. She is at our election board. This is new this year. Hi, Chanel.
Numbers popping up on our election board that we're looking at.
Yeah, it took a little while, but now we have some more and more Missouri numbers flowing in, including some ones here in Cole County even. So, yeah, what do we got?
Yeah, so going through here, we obviously have the Senate numbers that we had last time. A little more this time. We're still at 1%. So it's pretty close here. Trudy, actually, we didn't expect it too much, but 1% reporting. She's 65, 33. Here we are. We have District 3 numbers starting to come in. District 4, we have the legalized marijuana numbers. And then the rest, we're still blank pretty much at this point.
Yeah. So basically what you're seeing is that some counties in the state are starting to get those absentee numbers we talked about earlier. Some of the smaller ones may even be getting today's votes starting to be counted. If you want to click on the full results there, we can see if they're in yet. Oh, I always forget. We can just select a race. So remember, you have this nice little tool. Let's see what is happening in Cole County. Sure enough, we have some numbers in for Cole County. It says 4 precincts reporting, but that's kind of an approximation because you have absentee ballots being mixed in with some actual precincts coming in. But anyway, we're starting to get votes there. We're starting to see what things are like. Of course, you're looking at about 3,000 votes. We're going to have a lot more come in. But in this race, for example, incumbent presiding commissioner Sam Bushman has a very big lead over independent Carla Steck, which is what people who are watching these local races were expecting.
We even have a check mark.
Yes, look at that. I'm not sure why exactly that is, but we'll have to look at the data that we have in. But it looks like maybe we have a race decided in Howard County. This could be some kind of error in vote tabulating too. So we'll have to come back to that one and see what's going on there. But yeah, so you can. I keep popping up that menu. You can scroll all the way up and down this page to see what is in yet and what is not in yet. And that's going to change, of course, throughout the night. Anytime, you can always go back to the top two. And then you can always get there from this big bar at the top of our website, too. Now, one other thing that we want to highlight as well is the live chat that we have going on. So, all stations in our media group, which is NPG, we have stations around the country. We have some in New Mexico, in California, in Idaho. We also have another here in Missouri up in St. Joseph. But anyway, we have all gotten together and pooled our resources to have a live chat that is available on all of our websites. So basically, you can get on here if you want to talk about the election. There's a nice little link to the full chat. And if you want to talk about the election with people from around the country, you can do that. There's yours truly earlier asking, hey, are any Missourians on here? And then here we go. Polls are closed in Missouri, of course, now, where voters are being asked to legalize recreational marijuana, and some info on it. Oops. So, yeah, we have some action going here on the chat. I would love for us to get some of our Missouri folks on there talking to people. So if we can get that going, that would be great. But
comments and questions, whatever you have. I know when we get a little break, I'm popping off and checking the chat. So happy to talk to all of you guys.
That's right. And also, if you have anything that's like a question for us, that would be a good way to let us know about it too. Because as Chanel said, we're going to be checking the chat too throughout the night. So if you got a question for us, want to know more about some feature on our website, how to use it better, that sort of thing, we can help you with that. All right, now other things that we have here to keep in mind. We are keeping this, oh sorry, I should have just had you.
Yeah, you're okay.
We are keeping this election night blog updated throughout the night. This is where basically you're going to see kind of the latest news that we get in. So you'll get a mix of local election news, state election news, national election news here. So as you can see, Colt County, that was our first mid-Missouri county to release the vote tally, their absentee tally. So there it is. We have links to our interactive results from elsewhere.
What was the map we were looking at last time that had no colors? Now it has a little bit of action.
Let's take a look at that. Yeah, let's take a look at that. This is our national balance of power graphic, and so as you saw, there's a link to it from our live blog. There's also a link to it on our navigation menu here.
Hamburger.
Yep, the old hamburger menu. You can look at this as a cartogram or a geographic. We kind of like geographic more. Hold on, I'll give it a minute just to pop up. Okay, so what you're looking at right now is the balance of power in the U.S. Senate. So, this is
37 on my side.
Yeah, 37 Republican seats up for election, 40 the Democrat.
29 seats not up for election. I have
Gotcha,
37
okay.
up top.
So here's what this is. I'm sorry. So we have 40 Democrats who are there, safe, not up for election this year. 37 Republicans not up for election this year. Here in the middle is where it fills in. So as the night goes on, you're going to see this fill up in the middle. And one of these two parties is going to take the majority, we think. We don't know for sure. There can always be a tie, just like there is right now, where Vice President Kamala Harris is the tie-breaking vote. But as you can see, some of these states are starting to be decided. Missouri is not one of them yet, but over there where Chanel is, you can see
I think
several
when you
of them.
press on Missouri, it will kind of tell you. So we're only at 4.9%.
Yeah, we got a ways to go. We got a ways to go. But if you look at some of these states, like Oklahoma, Now, it's only 18.9% counted. However, look at that big lead. I mean, so that's why they're calling that for the incumbent Republican. It's also Oklahoma, which is a very conservative state. Same thing going on in Arkansas, John Bozeman. Alabama, it looks like Katie Britt is going to win that race. That's been a closely watched one. Marco Rubio looks like he's on his way to re-election in Florida against Val Demings. That's been one that's been watched all across the country.
They've had a little more time than us over here.
They
have a lot more
yeah.
colors at this point.
Exactly. On the East Coast, of course, they're an hour ahead, which means their polls close before we do, so some of their votes start coming in. Let's highlight some of those Democratic wins there,
Yeah,
Chanel.
we can look at my home state, Maryland.
All right.
They're only
there
at
you go.
1.1% votes counted, but
But
like
they're
you
already
mentioned,
calling it.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting, and that is probably based in large part upon exit polling.
Okay.
These numbers come from the Associated Press. And that's part of how they determine their numbers, is asking people as they leave the polls, hey, how did you vote? So as you can see here, Chris Van Hollen, he's got fewer votes than the Republican, yet they're already calling that state blue. So that would be based on that exit polling of what people are actually saying as they leave the polls.
Now we have some light blue states. You
We
want to
do.
talk about what that
Sure,
kind of
the
means?
light blue means it's trending. So when it's dark red or dark blue, that means win guaranteed. That's going to be, if it's red, that's going to be a Republican win. If it's dark blue, that's going to be a Democratic win. Light blue means that,
We're getting there.
light blue means, exactly, the people at the Associated Press who do this every election are thinking, hey, it's looking like the Democrats going to win this one, which of course would be a big deal in Ohio where you got Tim Ryan and J.D. Vance. It's looking like the Democrats going to win this one, so we're going to shade it blue. So that's what you're seeing there. Georgia, Raphael Warnock over Herschel Walker right now. That's a big race. Let's see, North Carolina. Democrats have the lead there too. So, looking there, we also, by the way, in case you're curious and you want to drill down a little bit on Missouri, the Missouri Senate race, you can click on that and sort of see where those votes are coming from. So what does it look like? Where are we getting them from there, Chanel?
The two ends, so St. Louis definitely has a lot around there. Jefferson City, the capital, has some, and then Kansas City over here also. If you click on each one, it will kind of break down 14.8% here, and Jefferson City only at 8%, but those are the ones that are highlighted at this point. Definitely more than we were seeing about 20 minutes ago.
Right. Here's an interesting one. Taney County, which is, I mean, it's kind of, well, I guess that's Branson, Springfield area. It's fairly rural, but they've only got a few votes in, but this is a super conservative county. So that's why the AP is like, okay, we know Eric Schmidt's going to win here, even though fewer than 10% of votes have been counted. So,
he has a pretty big lead there.
He does.
70
he does.
to about 27
Yeah,
so far.
exactly. So we also have U.S. House. Now, a lot of prognosticators.
48 on my side.
Yeah, 24 over here for Democrats. A lot of prognosticators think that that the Democrats that the Democrats are going to go down in the House, that the Republicans are going to take the House back. So far, it's looking like that. The House, just like the Missouri House, everyone is elected every 2 years. There are only 2-year terms. So right now, 24 Democrats are safe, 48 Republicans are safe. It's trending toward the Republicans. As you can see here, this is skewed on the Republican side. Let's go to the geographic. Now this one...
Much more to follow here.
Right. Of course, House districts are much smaller than states. So as you can see, it's a little bit more complicated there. But here in Missouri, for example, there's our very own 4th district, but there aren't any votes in yet, so I can't really interact with it. And there's our 3rd district. So when those turn, and you will probably see a light red and then a dark red, because those are Republicans are favored to win both of these districts, then you'll start seeing those turn. All right, moving on down here. We also have breakdowns of each of the... Oh, we have the balance power for governor. Of course, here in Missouri, we don't have a governor's race this year. We don't have one for 2 more years. But you can look at how they're going in other states around us. Iowa's got a governor's race. Looks like you're going to have a Republican elected there. Arkansas, that's Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Mike Huckabee. Looks like we are about to go back to the studio.
All right, next time we check in with you guys, hopefully we have some more numbers up on our board, but we'll pitch it back to the studio for now.
Welcome back, everyone. They called in the relief pitcher tonight. I am Lucas Geisler here, continuing Your Voice, Your Vote 2022 coverage for ABC 17 News. Now, we've spent the last hour going over where results are, those little bits of results that we've gotten in across the state on major elections. We're going to start off our coverage tonight here in the 8 o'clock hour with ABC 17's Megan Drakis, who is live in Washington, D.C., watching how that national midterm election is playing out in the balance of power in Congress. Megan.
Thank you, Lucas. And just like you said, we're live in Washington, D.C. tonight, monitoring the balance of power all across the country, including in Missouri. Now, some of the polls that have closed, a lot of them did close along with Missouri at 7 p.m. We've got Alabama, Connecticut, Delaware, District of Columbia, Illinois, Kansas, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Mississippi, Missouri, like we said, New Hampshire, New Jersey, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, South Dakota, Tennessee, and Texas. So a couple of close races. We're watching Pennsylvania currently on ABC17news.com. You can go to each state. We're watching the U.S. Senate race. Currently, it has allocated 41 seats for the Democrats and 40 seats claimed by the Republicans. Now, if you would click on Pennsylvania, which is a very highly contested race between John Fetterman and Mehmet Oz, you can see 10.3% of the votes are counted. So there's not a ton of votes in, but currently John Fetterman is leading the poll with 70% of those votes. As we could see, if we go to Missouri, like we just mentioned, Trudy Busch Valentine and Eric Schmidt. Currently, we've got 5.1% of those votes counted. Trudy Busch Valentine is leading 64% to 34%. We've got other candidates with about 1,600 votes at 1.2%. So we will be monitoring that election very closely. Current Senator Roy Blunt, who I sat down and spoke with, he is endorsing Eric Schmidt to take his spot. But it does look like so far, again, only 5% of those votes counted. But Trudy Busch Valentine is taking that lead right now. If we click on a couple other ones, it seems like Kansas, they did call the race. Jerry Moran with 49.2% of that vote. It does look like Oklahoma's also called with a Republican Party win there. North Dakota also called. We've got Indiana, Kentucky, Alabama, South Carolina, and Florida. Marco Rubio won re-election in Florida. He secured about 57% of the votes right now. And that's currently with 85% of the votes being counted. So we will be looking at a lot of those votes. A couple of the polls are still closing across the state. We're looking at Arizona, which is a very highly competitive race, so we'll be watching that closely. But make sure to tune in and online and check out this interactive map. Very useful and very exciting, very helpful information. Reporting live in Washington, D.C., Megan Drakis, ABC 17 News.
All right, Megan, thank you very much for your coverage from Washington, D.C. That's sort of the major headline tonight. What's Congress going to look like when this election is all said and done? We are live in the studio here once again tonight with two experts here in Boone County. Fred Perry, former Boone County Commissioner here, and Karen Sickinator here with the State Democratic Committee, as well as an active member of the Boone County Democratic Party as well. Thank you both so much for being here to help talk with us, talk with our viewers as well on just what to make of all of this insanity that we get on election night. A lot of insanity, indeed. Let's just start with the top of the ticket that we see in Missouri, the U.S. Senate race. We have Attorney General and Republican Eric Schmitt running against Trudy Busch Valentine, the Democratic nominee for this. We heard Megan go through some of the races that have been called. Many states, probably not too much of a surprise there on their Senate races, places looking like Oklahoma, you're looking at North Dakota. Florida, I guess you can say, maybe a surprise. Marco Rubio looking pretty strong there, but Republicans looking stronger and stronger every year in Florida. And of course, here in Missouri, it's a lot of the polling in the same way. The Republican stronghold here that we're looking at for this. What do you expect when it's all said and done on what the Senate is going to look like, though? Because still a lot of majorly contested states we're still waiting to hear from. Karen, let's start with you. What are you expecting the Senate to look like?
I mean, we were still looking at a very strong toss-up with the Senate, so it really could go either way. And I really think we're just going to have to wait and see what kind of voter turnout we have across the country to see where that's going to go, because, all the predictive maps that we've had, nobody's really making any solid declarations one way or another. Yeah,
a lot of those big battleground states like Pennsylvania, Arizona, Georgia, they all say they're within half a point of each other. I mean, at that point, who's to tell, but probably a day or two from today when we know. Fred Perry, any thoughts on what the Senate might look like after this?
I think it's pretty clear that the Republicans are going to take back the majority in the Senate. It's hard for, midterms elections are very hard for the sitting president's party that's historically has been correct for the most part. When you look at what's happening, the national narrative about the economy, about crime, about open borders, and there's just a lot of things that have been dominating news headlines over the last few years that really don't bode well for sort of the Democratic agenda. And so I think that the Republicans have a great opportunity to take back the majority in the House and the Senate. I just hope they don't screw it up. You know what I mean? Because it's that happens.
You said that it's clear to you. What makes it so clear? Is it just how people feel about those issues you brought up?
I think that what you have seen in the polling, if we can rely on polling, I mean, the polling has been pretty clear that it looks like it's going to be very easy for the Republicans to take back the House, and not as easy, but certainly a very clear path to taking back the Senate. And so, it's. And I think that you just have a number of factors that sort of make that a little bit easier. And really, our economic status right now is one of those things that makes it very easy. The perception about crime in our communities and in our country, the concern about what's happening on the border and with immigration. And so, look, the Republican Party had an awful lot of great talking points to be talking about. This is a very tough time in our country, and typically that does not bode well for the sitting president.
Karen, I'm wondering your thoughts too on what that.
I mean, we've talked about not being able to really rely on polling. This last couple of cycles have really shown us that the polling that's been coming out has been largely overturned and inaccurate, and we really can't rely on what those numbers say anymore. And I think a lot of that has to do with how our younger generations are actually engaging with polling. A lot of times, if it's done through phone, I don't answer my phone if I don't recognize the number.
Sure.
And I know plenty of younger people are that way as well. So their data collection, I think, is going to be incredibly skewed. And again, we saw that with the 2016 election. All of these polls saying it was going to go for Hillary Clinton, and it ended up not. So I really think we have to kind of wait and see and not rely on what some of those numbers are telling us.
Do you think the message that Democrats have been putting out nationally is going to be effective in keeping the Senate in their control? The economy playing a huge part of it, but of course President Joe Biden has really made this a big message on democracy and the future of what that looks like, especially in the wake of the 2020 election. There's still people talking about this. There's still people even questioning the legitimacy of it, despite years of poking holes in even that narrative. So do you think this is an effective message, though, for Democrats to keep control of these national offices like that, what you've heard and what you've seen them on the trail with?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've had plenty of conversations with people who did vote for Donald Trump and were completely outraged over what happened on January 6th, to the point where they're saying that they're not going to vote for the Republican Party anymore. So we really have to take that into consideration and realize that that's a very strong message coming out of the Democratic Party, that, you know, we had some horrible propaganda that was put out by our former president and a lot of people who support that message. And it's really heartening when I do hear, you know, Republicans who are running for office take a step back and say, whoa, hey, no, we're not going to support that message because it's not founded in reality.
Fred, curious on your thoughts.
Well, I think
what's the message out there?
On both sides of the ticket? You've seen candidates distancing themselves from the current president and from the former president.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that they are reading the room very correctly. That it's not. Sure. A wise move to be bullish on Trump in some parts of the country, and it's not a wise move to be bullish on President Biden in parts of the country. So I think that especially these key states where you've seen the presence of the former presidents in the last week or so, those are obviously states where they think it might be to their advantage to have President Trump or President Biden or Obama there to sort of ring the bell with them. But, you know, I think that there is a lot there's a tremendous lack of confidence, I think, in our government. And I think that sort of bleeds over into the suspicions that people have about free and honest and clean elections. I think that people know that there's fraud in some of these things. And so it's not a perfect thing. We got to clean it up, but it's certainly not at the level that has been certainly part of the conspiracy theories that have been circulating for the last 2 years. And so
sure.
We just need to, you know, I think that we need to help, somebody needs to do something to restore our confidence in the process and in our government.
So let's bring it from Washington, D.C. back here into mid-Missouri here. Mm-hmm. Something I'm sure the three of us share a passion for, just the local political scene and what to expect here in Missouri. Particularly, let's talk about Boone County for a second, and Boone County's delegation to Jefferson City. So the big news from Jefferson City before this was redistricting, redrawing a lot of all of the state legislative districts, and what that's going to look like for Boone County. 5 races that we're watching here. Two of them unopposed by Democratic candidates, Kathy Steinhoff, David Tyson Smith, and 3 of them have a contested race here. Let's start with the 2 of them that have people leaving. Talk about the 47th district. Yeah. John Martin, as well as Adrian Plank, replacing Chuck Basie in that race. I don't know how you feel about that. There's tons of signs, TV commercials for it, the signs of a lot of money going into this race. Yeah. What's your feeling on how this is going to go? Karen, I'll start with you. And what's your feeling on how this is going to go from a Republican seat to pretty hotly contested seat?
Yeah, so when we were first looking at some of these numbers, when we got the new maps, we were looking at a district that was definitely leaning a little bit blue, but still considered a toss-up. And as of right now, when we look at the money that's been spent, when we look at voter turnout specifically, we're not seeing numbers as high as they were in the previous 2 cycles. And I think that could play very heavily into what actually ends up happening in this district. So we're very optimistic that Adrian will be able to pull out a win in this district, but it's certainly not a guaranteed thing.
Fred, how do you feel about this race in the 2?
Well, that certainly was the most interesting race to watch between John Martin and Adrian Plank. A lot of outside money coming into those races, and that always bothers me a little bit when you see labor union money coming in. The House Republican Campaign Committee spent a lot of money on that race, and so you really want to see candidates who are able to raise their own money and get their own message out there. And so there's a lot of outside involvement, which I don't like. I think that it's going to be hard for any Republican to win a state representative race in Boone County because of the way the districts have been redrawn. Shree Tolston Rice will most likely be okay because she doesn't have a very strong opponent. And I think that her district has not been nearly as impacted as some of the redrawing on the 50th and on the 47th. the race between Jim Musgraves and Douglas Mann is very interesting to me. Douglas Mann was able to raise a lot of money. Jim was not successful at raising money and getting his message out. And so, and we lost all those rural parts of 2 other counties, which typically go pretty strong Republican. So I think if a Republican wins a state house race in Boone County, it'll be something to talk about.
Yeah. So Fred scooped up the rest of the races there. Karen, what are your thoughts? I mean, let's talk about the 50th there. Doug Mann, the Democrat, and Jim Musgraves, the Republican. Now, what used to be all the way down to the southern end of Boone County, including Ashland, now pretty much South Columbia, a big area there, West Columbia as well. What do you think of this race as well?
Yeah, so I think this will be a relatively easy win for Doug Mann.
Okay.
You know, the numbers are in our favor with this. We are really pushing hard on turning out the votes, specifically in wards 4, 5, and 6, which is 47 and 50. So we really focused a lot of our efforts there in trying to make sure that we do absolutely win these 2 seats as well.
If you'll indulge me a little to look ahead to 2024, state Senate race now, Caleb Rowden leaving to term limits, and it's a new district that is just Boone County, no longer with Cooper or Randolph counties, which it had been before. As Fred pointed out, it's going to be tough for anyone to win, any Republican to win these seats in Boone County. So, Karen, what is the Boone County Democratic Party looking forward to in this race? Are you fielding interest right now? What kind of peek can you give us at what we're looking at in 24?
So we've had conversations probably with 5 or 6 Democrats who are looking at this race to possibly run. So I think what we're really going to be looking at is a very robust primary within the Democratic Party to gain control of this seat. And I think it's going to be an incredibly interesting race. I think that there's going to be a huge amount of money spent on this race. And I think it'll be really interesting to see what actually comes up out of this.
Fred, do you think Republicans talk about money? I mean, is that one resource that they could do to try to make this competitive? Or I think see any shot with the state Senate race?
I think it's going to be very tough for a Republican to win that seat, and that's really bad for Boone County because really the Republicans have such a stronghold on the state of Missouri that really it's hard for a minority party member to get into a position that will really benefit Boone County, and so they can be a minority leader in some areas, but it doesn't really carry the same gravitas that it does to be in the majority and in a leadership position. And I think that's Boone County has certainly benefited from the work that Caleb Rowden has done and the positions that Chuck Basie and Sarah Walsh have been in because of they're part of the majority party. So, unfortunately, Columbia is not a very Columbia is not really a favorite part of the state for a lot of the members of the legislature, and so this will probably just make it worse. So when you look at funding for the university and you look at some key projects that we'd like to see happen, it's probably not in our best interest to have those seats held by Democrats.
Still, how it shakes out, though, there's not saying anyone can't make inroads when they get to Jefferson City on those. Absolutely, but it'll be interesting to see how that 2024 race goes. We've got about 90 seconds here before we take another quick break and go to the election result board. Want to get your thoughts on just some Boone County, some county level races to keep an eye on, things that you're interested to start seeing results come back on. Fred, we'll start with you.
I think Republicans are going to win all 4 seats in county government. Right now, there's not a single elected Republican in the county government center.
You were the last one standing in 2020.
But I think that just if we do see a red wave tonight, I think we'll see all 4 Republicans take those county seats.
Karen? County race that you're keeping an eye on right now?
Well, certainly the one that we've put the most energy and effort into is Bob Nolte with Recorder of Deeds. He's raised a huge amount of money. He's knocked a large number of doors, and I don't see that same sort of effort coming from his Republican counterparts. So I think he's definitely going to be able to sweep up that seat. I think Kip Kendrick, he went into this with a very large war chest.
Sure.
He's worked very hard. He's employed a huge number of people to get out there and spread the message. And, he's relatively well liked. We all love Kip, and we definitely want to see him in that position. And I think he would do great as a county commissioner, and I'm very enthusiastic about seeing him in that role.
Bob Nolte was one of those people who, again, a newcomer to at least having his name on the ballot there. But I think the most surprising donation that I saw going through, Eli Drinkwitz, putting money behind Bob Nolte's campaign there. So someone who has been around that people know, and now we'll see if he'll have a seat in the county government. We're going to go quickly out to ABC 17's Chanel Porter, who's live in the newsroom looking at the KMIZ election board for us tonight. Chanel, what are we looking at?
more numbers than last time. So we're up to 2 precincts over there for the U.S. Senate race.
Yeah, a few are starting to come in. If you would hit that arrow over there, we're also seeing some in the statewide, constitutional amendment to legalize medical marijuana. Hit that once more. And still yet, our local races, we're not really seeing much at all. We're going to go to our full results page here and going to do a little bit of the magic of TV here and highlight some things for you. Okay, so what we're looking at on here, oops, did not mean to do that. That's okay, I can just erase it. All right, so if you're looking for some of our more local races, I just heard Lucas and our panelists talking about some of those local races. You'll scroll down a little bit and you're going to start getting into those fairly quickly. Now by local, I am going to include the U.S. House races that we have here. So we've got, oops, don't mind those dots. We've got, Blaine Luetkemeyer beating Bethany Mann right now. There we go. Yeah.
Maybe. We're getting the
there, yeah. This is some of the first time we're using this tech, so bear with us a little bit. All right, so we've got Blaine and Bethany Mann. We've got Mark Alford right here leading against Democrat Jack Truman. Alford is widely expected to win Missouri's 4th district, very largely conservative district. It does take in half of Columbia and Boone County, the northern half. So he is probably on his way to a win there.
We also have Republicans here leading in both District 6 and District 8. So Sam Graves is up to 68, as close enough, and Jason Smith at 59.
Yeah, and those districts are kind of on the, Sam Graves takes in, his district is basically northern Missouri, a band across northern Missouri. It takes in a couple of our mid-Missouri counties. The 8th district is right up against mid-Missouri as well. It's kind of basically the south central and southeastern part of the state. So you're going to see that too. You're going to be interested in those numbers too because they're right up against us. All right, so what do we have for Amendment 3 right now? There's not a whole lot of counts in, but as you can see here, Amendment 3 is so far a yes vote. Now that's so far.
Pretty tight.
Yeah, we've got a long way to go. These are, let's see, you got about 9,000 and about 7,000, 16,000 votes. So yeah, you're going to have plenty of time for that to change, and it could very well change. This is one where I think nobody's really sure exactly how it's going to go. This is one that really could go either way. Yes, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, we will clear that real quick.
This one, I want to go back up for just a second. Just increased police funding, starting to kind of be a wider margin. Only two precincts so far, but
yeah, and that's an interesting amendment on the ballot because what that is, that has to do directly with Kansas City Police Department,
right?
Which is a police department that the state constitution says a lot about how it is formed and operated. So this constitutional amendment would require the city of Kansas City to provide more funding for that police department. So that's what you're looking at there. And yeah, those numbers are starting to get up there. Looks like a lot of those absentees coming in. Of course, you have all of the judges here. And once we get through that, we've got some of those local races that you heard our panelists just talking about. So let me bring up our little drawing tool again here. All right, so some of those you're going to want to watch are State House District 44. You're also going to want to pay attention to State House District 47. That is where Adrian Plank and John Martin are in a neck-and-neck battle and could go either way.
That was Chuck Basie's seat, correct?
Right, yeah, sure was. Yeah, and that's been redrawn a little bit to where some of the counties outside of Boone County that used to be in that district are no longer in it.
Okay.
So that makes it a more heavily Democratic district. So this one could easily swing over and turn blue. What do you got over there? Which one is
Yeah,
that?
so this is District 50. We have Douglas Mann and James Musgraves. Nothing in here yet.
Yep, and that's another one of those races in our area that you're going to want to watch throughout the night. Much like the 47th, it is a district that's been held by a Republican, but the shape of that district has changed to where now Democrats stand a much higher chance of winning. Over here we've got State Senate District 10. So this is Jenny Riddle's current Senate district. This is a big Senate district in our area. It actually stretches all the way to Illinois, takes in much of Callaway County. Travis Fitzwater, who is a House member, he is the Republican running there. He is running against a Libertarian, and he's largely expected to win there. So those are some of the big ones in our area. I'm going to go ahead and clear this out as we look a little bit further down. As you can see, you can get all of the House district races, all of the Senate district races here on our website if you want. Now, into the local races that we did mention a little bit ago. You'll see these Boone County races here. We've got, this is a big one to watch, presiding commissioner. So this is the chief elected officer, the highest elected officer of the county. So Kip Kendrick, former lawmaker, Democrat, is running against Connie Liebert, a local businesswoman. We'll see who will prevail there. You might have seen the Vote for Bob signs around town. Bob Nolte has a very interesting sort of campaign. He's got the Bob signs. They stand out. You know,
definitely seen some Bob signs.
you see the Bob signs everywhere. And over here, we've got Boone County Auditor. Now, the reason that race is significant is that the current auditor, June Pitchman, has been in office for a few decades, and she is retiring.
Drawing all around
Oh,
here.
yeah. That's okay. We'll erase these, and we'll look at some others. Boone County Treasurer. That's a big race. That's Dustin Stanton is the rare Republican office holder in Boone County. The reason he's there, he was appointed to that seat by Governor Mike Parson, a fellow Republican, when a Democrat stepped down from that seat. He is trying to keep that seat. You might have seen some of his ads or his signs around town.
We have some local use taxes in here.
Yes, we absolutely
We got those
do.
out of the way last time.
Right. So we've got Centralia's got a use tax on. Harrisburg's got a use tax on. Interesting. Rocheport has a use tax on, and a question about whether to let broadband into their town by Airlink Rural Broadband. So that's kind of an interesting thing. Cole County's got an interesting race with the presiding commissioner race on the ballot. Howard County has prosecuting attorney. It looks like when we saw earlier that this one was colored in, that must have been an error. So we still don't have those votes in yet. But basically pretty much any race you might be interested in, you can find there. We'll go back to our home page for now. And
How's our chat looking?
we've got, let's see what we got going here on the chat. So yeah, as you can see, you have people in here. This is a live chat that is active with NPG stations across the country. So you're talking about stations in Oregon, New Mexico, California, in addition to here in Missouri. I left out Idaho. Idaho's another one. So
California's still voting right now.
Yes,
right? Yeah.
exactly. I mean, a lot of those West Coast, they're, let's see, it's 8:30 here. So it's going to be
6:30?
6:30 in California.
Yeah.
They're going to be getting ready to close their polls, and depending on, if they have long lines at polling places, those people are going to be able to vote. And so it could take a while before we start to see how it goes out there. But as you can see, the chat has been fairly active. If you want to jump on there, you can talk to people from all over the country. And some of them, of course, are already starting to prognosticate and talk about the results. Here we have one, Civic Discourse. I like that name. We're all about some civic discourse. Florida seems to have achieved a red tide. If you've been following with us, we've talked a little bit about some of those Florida races where Marco Rubio looks like he's going to be reelected to the Senate. Ron DeSantis looks like he's going to be reelected governor. So indeed, there does seem to be a little bit of a red tide going on in Florida. Is that indicative of what we're going to see tonight? We don't know.
Right.
Of course, the Democrats control, they control the presidency, the House and the Senate. Usually the party that controls the presidency in these term elections, voters bring them back down to earth a little bit.
Right.
So we'll see if that'll happen here. But
I'm gonna check in on our balance of power
let's do.
since we have some red tides starting.
Yes. Let's see if that's bearing out in different places. All right, this is our national balance of power, which is, of course, available from our menu, and there's a link on our homepage among our top stories, too. We prefer our... Ooh, where'd it go?
Maybe.
Hold on a second. Our map disappeared for just a second, but there it is. Our computer's trying to load too many things. You know how that goes, I'm sure.
That's why we need broadband.
Right, exactly. Yes, better broadband for Missouri. Okay, so here's what we got in the Senate. Democrats, 41 safe seats right now.
40 on the Republican.
40. Yeah, it's really close. There's 50. Right now, Democrats have 50 seats. They've got the tiebreaker with Vice President Kamala Harris. So we're going to see what's going to happen here. It's going to be very close. Analysts going into today were saying maybe the Democrats can grow their lead in the Senate.
It was pretty tight, though.
It is.
Yeah.
And as you can see from this map, I mean, that's a lot of red.
Finally got some colors over here.
Right.
Going.
Some of our neighbors
Kansas,
are actually getting in. So in Kansas, it appears right now that the incumbent Republican Senator Jerry Moran is going to win there. Oklahoma, you've got James Lankford. This is Senate, correct? Yeah. Oklahoma, you got James Lankford looking like he'll be reelected. Katie Britt in Alabama. We talked about Florida a little bit earlier. We got Marco Rubio there. You've also got some Democratic wins popping up out on the East Coast too. New York, you got Chuck Schumer strongly holding on to his seat. You got a Democrat in Vermont who is winning there. Now, some of these lighter, there's Chanel's home state of Maryland, and it looks like the Democrats winning there. Now you'll notice these lighter colors. This means that these states are trending. So like Georgia is trending Democratic. It's looking like, the AP is saying, it's looking like Raphael Warnock will prevail over Herschel Walker. Of course, that's been a very well publicized, controversial race.
These numbers are still pretty close. I mean, 60% of votes, and we're at 50% to 48 at this point.
They are. That's one of those that I really wouldn't consider that over until it's really cold, Let's see, we already looked at Arkansas. Oh, Colorado. Colorado is also trending Democrat. Incumbent Michael Bennet is trying to hold on to his seat out there. Of course, Colorado is one of the stranger states for party politics. You have a lot of conservatives and liberals mixing together out there. Pretty much what they have in common is that they don't like to be told what to do because they live out west. So, of course, we're like that a bit in Missouri too. All right, so if you want to look at where the votes are coming in Missouri, all you got to do is click right there. And as you can see over by Chanel, we've got a map that will show you, okay, where are these votes coming from and what kind of votes are coming in.
Yeah, a lot of red besides the two corners here.
Right, exactly. As we all know, in Missouri, you've got a few blue islands. You've got Kansas City, you've got St. Louis, you've even got here Boone County and Columbia, which is kind of more purplish, but it often goes blue. But our votes aren't really in yet for that race. So we're still waiting on those. We do have some absentee votes that we've already put in to our vote tally system. But again, that's just absentee.
Yeah.
Not at all indicative of how any race is going to go in the end. But yeah, anywhere in outstate Missouri, you're looking at red. Now, U.S. House. All right, so...
A little bit more on my side here.
Right. Yeah, and this is what the experts have been saying, that they expect that Republicans will take the House. Right now, Republicans have more seats that they've won tonight than Democrats. 78 to 46.
See if we can pull up this map down here.
Yeah, you can see where those are concentrated. Look at that. You've got the Sun Belt down here. You've got the Southeast. You've got Appalachia. That's basically where you would expect to see real concentrations of red. But of course, you've also got some blue over there on the East Coast, which is, also what you would expect to see. All right, we are about to go back to the studio, I'm hearing. So, yeah, thanks, and we'll be seeing you again.
Janelle Porter and Matt Sanders, name a more iconic duo. Thank you very much for your coverage there at the KMIZ Election Board. And welcome back here in studio to Your Voice, Your Vote live stream going on here. A lot of races to catch up on. And no better person to help us with that than ABC 17's Layla Mitchell, who joins us live now in studio. Layla, Missouri voters had the chance to vote on 4 constitutional amendments today. What are they looking like?
Yeah, Lucas. Now, since the state's current constitution was adopted in 1945, 119 amendments have been added. And if voted yes, these 4 amendments would change the Constitution. The 4 amendments up for vote this year would decide investing in funds, legalizing marijuana, funding for the Kansas City Police Department, and the National Guard, possibly changing departments. Let's start with Amendment 1, which would change the way state funds are allocated if passed. Right now, the state treasurer has to hold a vote from the general public to change the use of state money. Amendment 1 would change that to allow the Missouri House of Representatives and Missouri Senate to make those decisions instead of a vote. Now, Amendment 4 would allow the Missouri General Assembly to increase the minimum funding for a police force established by the State Board of Commissioners. The only police force this is expected to impact is the Kansas City Police Department. And let's go to Amendment 5. Now, if passed, we would see the Missouri's National Guard move from its current position with the Missouri Department of Public Safety to an administrative department within the Missouri Executive Branch. The general for the National Guard would become the member of the governor's cabinet. And I'm going to leave Amendment 3, the amendment to remove state prohibitions on marijuana, to ABC 17's Ethan Hines, who will fill you in. Now, votes are starting to make their way in. You saw that on the screen. And we're going to have more updates, so stick around with us.
All right, thank you very much, Layla. Yeah, a lot of amendments are going to be, pretty interesting topics that we're talking about. We are talking about marijuana as well. Amendment 3 probably drove a lot of people out to the polls to vote on this. ABC 17's Ethan Hines is live at Grand Cru in Columbia at a watch party where advocates of Amendment 3 are keeping an eye on this one. Ethan.
That's exactly right, Lucas. The best way I can describe it is it's pretty much a party here. People are laughing, they're having a good time. Expectations as well as morale are pretty high here. Amendment 3 will legalize recreational marijuana, and a lot of people do have the confidence in that. Along with that, there will be a 6% tax on the recreational weed, and depending on your criminal charges, they may be expunged. But like I said, you can probably see behind me, there's a lot of people here. We're having a good time. Like I said, people are very, very happy and very, very confident about this amendment being passed. Reporting from Southern Columbia, Ethan Hines, ABC 17 News.
All right, Ethan, thank you. Secretary of State's website right now saying that no votes are winning this one, though, on Amendment 3. It's about 51% to 48%. Super close. Only like 100 precincts out of 3,000 precincts in right now. Not a huge sample size to go off of, but it is probably going to be a very, very close vote on Amendment 3 there. Dan Viets, Mid-Missouri Normal there, has always been a big advocate of this measure as well. So a lot of people interested in Columbia, I'm sure, on how marijuana legalization is going to play out. Of course, we've got folks all around the state to watch many big ticket items here. That includes the U.S. Senate race, ABC 17's Hannah Falcon. Live watching Eric Schmidt's race at the party at the Sheraton Westport Chalet in St. Louis. Hannah, how's things going out there? Big crowd.
Yes, Lucas, a big crowd has gathered since the last time we spoke. I've been monitoring the results as they came in. We have just over 10% reporting on the Associated Press, and it's only about a 1% difference between Eric Schmidt and Trudy Busch Valentine right now. But again, that's barely 10% reporting of the votes. So this race could change a lot, but right now it's very, very tight. Looking locally at Mid-Missouri results, we saw about the early votes from Cole County going in Schmidt's favor. The supporters here that I've spoken to, they obviously are here to support Schmidt. They think he would be a very strong person in Washington, D.C., advocating for the things that Missourians care about. This year, we're seeing a lot of voters care about inflation, the economy, border security, and schools and education. These are the things that I've heard. I'm speaking to supporters here. They think that Schmidt takes their side and advocates for them strongly on those items and believes that he would continue to do that up in Missouri. So that's why we see this big crowd gathered here today. Very loud, very enthusiastic group gathered here right now. Lucas, reporting live in St. Louis, I'm Hannah Falcon, ABC 17 News.
Certainly folks wondering if they're going to see the next U.S. Senator from Missouri. Hannah, thank you. ABC 17 Chief Photographer Chris Bryan is live from another group of people wondering if they're seeing the next U.S. Senator from Missouri. Live from Trudy Busch Valentine's watch party at the Sheet Metal Local 36 Union Hall in St. Louis. Chris, how's things going?
I'm really excited to...
Good evening, Lucas. You know, right now the energy in here is great. I mean, from between the live band that was playing, we had Tashana Jones, the mayor of St. Louis, who was here a little bit ago, who got kind of the speeches started off. Right now, there's a campaign staffer up there talking. So right now, the crowd's kind of pulled in, and they're having a great time, so you cannot beat this atmosphere that's going on right now. But right now, I was talking to Jacob Long a little bit ago, just a few minutes ago, who was in communications with Trudy Busch Valentine's campaign, and he says that right now they are ecstatic about the numbers they're seeing. The early returns that are coming in, they're seeing. They're loving the numbers out of Jefferson County, out of Jackson County as well. So they're starting to see those numbers come in. They're loving what they're seeing. Now, I asked him if it helped that Amendment 3 was on the ballot along with the Senate race. He said right now they're not quite sure, but they think a lot of people who would have come out for Amendment 3 would be Trudy Busch Valentine supporters because she came out for Amendment 3. So those numbers are too early to tell right now, Lucas, but they're ecstatic and they're happy about how these numbers are turned out right now, and they're hoping that they can get the first Democratic senator since Claire McCaskill to come out of St. Louis. But for now, I'm going to send it back to you there in the studio, Lucas.
All right, Chris, we'll see. ABC 17's Marina Diaz is live from Blaine Luetkemeier's watch party at the Courtyard by Marriott in Jefferson City, the House of Representatives race there in District 3. Marina, how's things going?
Lucas, there's quite the turnout over here at Blaine Luetkemeyer, who's running for re-election for the House of Representatives, Congressional District 3. I mean, as you can see behind me, there are people coming in, and they continue to flow in and out as these results are starting to come in. And if you actually take a look here in a second, I did speak with Luetkemeyer, who told me he's feeling pretty good about his election currently. He says that the new redistricting has made things a little bit more challenging for him, but we can take a listen to what he had to tell me now.
Well, we're excited about the election this evening. We feel very comfortable with it. We had redistricting this year, and I got 330,000 new people in my district, and it dropped about 8 points, making it more difficult to win. But it's still very, very substantially a Republican district, and we feel very comfortable about this evening. So we'll see how it goes. We've done our work. We've been out meeting all the new folks as much as we could in our new district, and we're excited about that opportunity, and we've been well received. So we're looking forward to it.
Lucas Luetkemeyer has actually held his current position for 9 years now and has worked in Missouri government since 2005.
All right, Marina, Blaine Luetkemeyer, a major part of the GOP caucus there. What values are close to Republican voters' hearts there? Sure, there's many of them at the party you're at.
Yeah, so he told me that he doesn't make campaign promises, but there are some things that he really wants to focus on, and this includes providing oversight to the legislation. He told me that he's the top Republican for small business owners, and that's a thing that he keeps wanting to push. And he also said that he has a few bills he's working on to address fraud and mismanagement of money within the government.
right, Marina, what's the vibe that you've gotten from folks just in the crowd, if any at all? Don't know if you're very busy out there. Have you gotten a chance to talk to anyone else that's there?
Yeah, I have been able to speak to a few people, including former representative, or he's about to be former representative, Chuck Basye. He told me that he's out here to support Blaine Luetkemeyer, and there's a couple other people that keep filing in and out. Like you said, I have been just a little bit busy, but for the overall, they seem very excited to see him continue to hold this office, and they're kind of waiting to see how this is going to play out within the majority power for the House of Representatives.
All right, very interesting, Marina, that Chuck Basye is there. That's a great point. As part of redistricting, southern Boone County, where Chuck Basye lives, is now in that district. So appreciate the insight. Great work, Marina. Thank you so much. Let's go out to ABC 17's Chanel Porter at the election board in the newsroom. Chanel, what do you got for us?
Let's look at the Senate real quick.
Check out the map.
Because I have just heard, we were talking earlier about Georgia and that it was trending Democratic.
Yeah.
But it is now trending toward Herschel Walker, the Republican. So, that could go back and forth throughout the night. We could see that change several times before the night's over, and we might not even know tonight, frankly. A lot of these races, we may not know.
Yeah.
What the
Still
result
very
is tonight.
close here.
Right. All right, so you were saying, let's go back to our full results. So again, this is our page where you can see all of our Missouri election results. We're having more tallies come in. What are we seeing there, Chanel?
Yeah, so we have a little bit, I think these numbers are pretty much the same over here, but we're up to 10 precincts. So Eric Schmidt still a little bit ahead there.
And he is, all the polls have him winning this race, but...
They have it a wider margin, the polls do.
Right, exactly. Right now, Trudy Busch Valentine is outperforming those polls. And of course, as we saw in both 2016 and 2020, polls aren't always right, so who knows? This could be, we could see a Democratic victory here in Missouri, but it's probably going to be a tight one.
Yeah.
What's not a tight one? Like right now anyway, of course, you don't have very many precincts reporting, but Scott Fitzpatrick has a commanding lead right now.
Still only 4% over here for District 3, but looking down here at District 4, we have 24%. So we're getting somewhere down there.
Yeah, we're getting more and more in for District 4, and Mark Alford is growing his lead. District 4 is a very conservative district. It includes much of western Missouri, but also the northern half of Boone County and Columbia. But Alford is a former Kansas City TV anchor.
We should call him up here with us.
I know, right? And he's very well known out in that area. And now Kansas City, part of Kansas City, is part of the 4th District. So I'm sure he's getting lots of votes out there. Incumbent Sam Graves in District 6 and incumbent Jason Smith in District 8 are both doing great. All right, now we have the statewide ballot questions. So these are amendments. And of course, the big one everybody's watching is Amendment 3. Looks like...
Very tight still,
exactly.
as we thought.
And that one's one that's also probably, you might see as votes come in, you might see that one go back and forth throughout the night as well.
Like you said, tomorrow morning we might be...
Right. We might not know till tomorrow morning, if even then. So we'll see. But that one, of course, is being watched closely by people all across the state. And then we'll skip through the judges here, but we have some local House and Senate races in the Missouri House and Senate that bear watching, but none of those totals are in.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems like we're waiting for a lot of the votes from our
We have a little bit over here in District 12.
Right, yeah. Some are coming in on District 12. We've also got some coming in District 60. Now, 60 is that district takes in most of Jefferson City. Dave Griffith is the Republican incumbent there. And it's looking like he's easily going to win re-election to that seat. Don Salcido did mount a fairly strong campaign for a Democratic challenger in a largely conservative area, but looks like Griffith, who is very well known there, is going to take that seat as well.
Rolling down here.
Yeah, here we start to get into some of our local races and local tax questions. So you can see, though, that most of them we don't have a lot of votes in yet.
Presiding commissioner, we're getting a little,
Right.
little bit in there.
We got a little bit for Sam Bushman. Looks like about a third of that vote's in. He has 70% of the vote. It's looking like he's probably going to be cruising to a pretty easy re-election. So that's Sam Bushman in Cole County. Of course, those numbers will change as results come in, but we expect him to keep that lead. Looks like we've got some on our fringe area here in Monroe County. Not much, though. Just a little bit coming in. And in Cairo,
They want the sales tax.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Cairo. They approved the sales tax there. Of course, the vote totals are very small. It's a small town. So you have that one final, and that's part of why those votes
Wonder
came
why
in
it didn't
so
take long to count there.
Right, exactly, exactly. Now, we'll go back home here. You know, and we're settling in for kind of a long night in terms of the vote counting front. It's going to take a while to get some answers to some of these things. So, there's a lot of stuff to kind of keep your, if you're really into the election stuff, there's a lot of stuff here to sort of keep you occupied for a while. We have a live chat. Now, this live chat is kind of a national live chat. So, this is getting people from all over the country. This is across our group of stations, which includes several stations out west where they're still voting right now. Yeah. The polls are about to close in places like California, Oregon, Washington, places like that. So, when you click here, you get to see our full live chat. And as you can see, it goes back a couple hours. You can go all the way back to the beginning of it, or you can just start here at the end of it. So 1 minute ago, you've got people. Hey, Mark says lead anchor in Columbia is doing great. So that's nice. All right, I'm hearing that we are ready to go back to the studio.
All right, sounds good. Well, hopefully we get some more chats coming in and some more numbers, but we will pitch it back to you guys in the studio.
Chanel, Matt, thank you. Welcome back to our Your Voice, Your Vote 2022 coverage. Appreciate you being here. I'm Lucas Geisler here with Marissa Holloway. Welcome back.
Yes,
to the desk.
Took a little dinner break.
Good,
Yeah, got some food, and now we're ready to keep tracking all these election results for you tonight. Right now, we're going to go live out to ABC 17's Megan Drakis, who is in Washington, D.C. for us tonight. Hi, Megan.
Hi, Marissa. Just took a little dinner break there as well in between hits, but we're back. We're back here. We are looking at your current national balance of power. Let's start off with the Senate. So right now, currently, it looks like Democrats have 41 seats. Republicans have 40. So very tight race there. Let's look at the few of the highly competitive elections. Let's go to Georgia first. So originally, Raphael Warnock was winning this race. Currently, 65.8% of those votes are tallied, but right now, Herschel Walker has also taken the lead. And if we take a look at Pennsylvania, John Fetterman is leading, but that gap has closed. So we're about 9 points away, and there's 31.9% of those votes counted. So we're definitely looking at that. Missouri, it looks like Eric Schmidt has taken the lead with 18% of those votes counted. So we are closely monitoring a lot of those races, but we will have more for you coming up in just a little bit. For now, reporting live in Washington, D.C., Megan Drakis, ABC 17 News.
Megan, thank you. Megan has been working hard for us the last
My
few
goodness.
days. I know. I imagine she's going to be tired. But right now, let's check in with ABC 17's Chanel Porter.
We're switching.
Yeah, Marissa, we got a little ways here. Matt, big announcement over on your side.
Yeah, we're feeling pretty confident that Sam Bushman is going to win the presiding commissioner seat in Cole County. I should say win re-election to the presiding commissioner seat. As you can see, he has a gigantic lead with most of the precincts in. I don't really see a way that the independent could overcome that big a lead. So we have a winner in Cole County. Sam Bushman will keep his presiding commissioner seat. Of course, that's one of the only, maybe the only local race that we can call right now, because we're starting to get some Boone County numbers in, but they're still going pretty slowly. But looking here, we've got Kip Kendrick with a pretty good lead in the presiding commissioner race. In Recorder of Deeds, Bob, you've seen his campaign signs. He's got a fairly decent lead there too over the Republican. Of course, as Boone Countyans generally know, county offices generally go to Democrats here. Boone County is a fairly Democratic county, even though the counties around it are mostly Republican. For auditor, the Democrat is winning there too. Margin's a little smaller though, so that one, we'll see how that goes as the night goes on. It looks like incumbent Dustin Stanton in the treasurer's office could potentially lose his seat. The Democrat is leading there too. Stanton was appointed to the seat by Governor Mike Parson. This would be very similar to what happened when Taylor Burks was appointed as clerk and then lost re-election to our current clerk, Democrat Brianna Lennon. So, keep looking for those numbers to come in throughout the night. We expect those to be coming in a lot quicker now.
Right. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Right. We're now almost 2 hours past polls closing here in Missouri. So we're thinking that we're going to start getting some numbers in. We still don't have, let's refresh and see if we got any more numbers in for some of these state house and senate. It looks like they're coming in really slowly. We do have Dave Griffith being called winner over in Cole County as well. 86% of precincts are reporting. He's got a 62% to 38% lead. So the incumbent Republican, Dave Griffith, it's looking like will win in District 60, which basically takes in most of Jeff City.
Right.
Going down a little bit here, we're looking for, of course, we're showing all of the Missouri districts, but we're looking for some local districts here that have some totals.
Still a lot of zeros on our board.
Right. And keep in mind that what we're looking at here is only contested races.
Right.
So there are a lot of races where, say, one person has run, and we just don't include those because you already know who's going to win. A good example of that is the district that Tim Taylor represents here in mid-Missouri. He was not opposed, so that's why you don't see Tim Taylor. Yeah,
right?
Exactly. He wins by default, so that's why you don't see Tim Taylor here. All right, now let's check in a little bit on where are we? Your voice, your vote. There we go. Let's check in a little bit on the national balance of power again. It's been a little while since we've looked at that.
Last time we were looking pretty even.
Yeah,
so
yeah, it really was. We'll see if that's changed at all. Again, this is based on a couple of things. This is exit polling that the Associated Press conducts and the actual vote tallies. And of course, vote tallies have been going on for a while out on the East Coast now. It's almost 9 o'clock here. Makes it almost 10 o'clock there. So we've had some time to really get some votes come in here. I'm going to go to geographic because that's what I like. And as you can see, yeah, we got some East Coast stuff coming in. We've got
northern states over here.
Right.
Too.
The Dakotas, not surprisingly, are red this time around. As usual, the Dakotas are usually red. Kansas has elected a Republican senator. So have Oklahoma and Arkansas. Of course, Missouri and Iowa is still going at it. Illinois, of course, elected a Democrat, as you would expect. Wisconsin, this is one of the big races being watched on the national stage, and it is tight.
Very.
Right now, incumbent Ron Johnson is losing to Democratic challenger Mandela Barnes. So that's one to watch.
PA's got a color.
Yeah, so what's going on there?
Yeah, so it's pretty tight here also. John Fetterman seems to be up 51.5%, but behind him 46.1%. But it's only almost 35% of voters at this point.
Right,
so
right.
long way to go, but projected Democrat at this point.
Yeah, and we've reached the end of our live stream, I believe. It is 9 o'clock, so we are going to be transitioning over to on air on ABC 17 and on Fox 22. So you can watch us there starting at 9 until 10:30.
All right, well, great work, Matt. Great work for
you.
everybody involved.